I was the self-made millionaire before it was in my bank account. It is just like, the athlete that visualizes, hitting that home run or, catching that ball. They are in it in their mind. They are that person. And then it's like the physical is the last place that happens. So it's like, oh, the physical finally caught up to my self-image, to how I'm seeing myself, living from the place of my goal. So I absolutely did that. Who would I be hanging around? What are the decisions I would make? What would my social circle look like? Who would I be masterminding with?
Hello and welcome to the Real Success Show. I'm your host, Candice Mama. If you are looking at me and saying, Candice, I really want to get from where I am to where I want to be, but I can't seem to get my mind right, then Hina Khan is the woman for you. She's a self-made millionaire and a former psychotherapist turned performance coach. Before we jump into this incredible conversation, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Now, without further ado, here's the phenomenal Hina Khan.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Real Success Show.
It's a pleasure.
Oh, man, Hina, I want to just jump into it and really start us at the beginning. Starting at the beginning, you are an inactive psychotherapist, right? But you're a peak performance coach and a self-made millionaire. So where did it start for you? Like young Hina, was this always the vision? Was this always the dream?
What I think was always the constant, Candice, was that I wanted to make an impact and help people. I felt very drawn to helping people. And I think just like many times we are drawn to things that we need to heal in ourselves, right? And so I had to do my own healing. I had to do a lot of work around my worthiness and receiving and stepping into my next level. So it is not a surprise now, looking in hindsight, because we can connect the dots looking backwards, that I was always drawn to this. It was kind of part working on myself as I was helping others as well.
Oh, I love that. And you spoke about unworthiness, which is something all of us experience. I'm yet to meet a human being who at some level or another doesn't struggle with this term of unworthiness or the feeling of it. So where did that stem from for you as Hina?
I think it stemmed from a few places. Number one was definitely growing up in a culture where it was a predominantly white culture, and my family was South Asian, and feeling like I didn't fit in. And then even in my own culture, what success looked like was basically, doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher, accountant. I mean, that then you had success, and I didn't really fit in there as well. So, but feeling that my worth was something that somebody else would determine, let me know if I am, that's how I was gauging my worthiness. It wasn't an inside job, it was coming from external. So if it wasn't coming from the society that I was growing up in around me, I wasn't seeing it represented. And if it wasn't in my own family, I couldn't find it anywhere, not knowing, of course, when you're young, that it's within you. It's within you. I was thinking about this the other day, Candice, that when a baby is born, a newborn baby, nobody looks at the baby and says, oh, well, you're not worthy of love yet. We automatically look at this baby and want to shower it with love and don't question its worthiness. And it's interesting to me how that gets, how we forget that within ourselves, or it's something that, like, when does that stop for us? Isn't that interesting?
Oh, that is a profound and powerful question. When exactly, right? And
when exactly?
Yeah, wow. And have you found the answer? Were you like, engaged?
I don't think there was, I don't think there was a specific, a specific incident that happened, or, when did it happen? But what I do know is that I'm happy that I realized that it's simply not true, that just like the baby, we are worthy simply because we are here. There's nothing to do, there's nothing to prove. I have nothing to prove. And when you do that, then I think it opens you up to being able to receive. Because if you don't feel worthy, then even if you receive things, you can't, it can be difficult to hold on to it because you don't feel worthy of having it. And this is a big block that so many of us have. And we go into the conscious mind of, but I don't understand. I really, really want it. But if you don't feel worthy of it, how are you going to hold on to it?
Oh, and that's a beautiful thing that you've just touched on. And that is, the idea that sometimes you can chase a dream for so long, whatever that dream is for you, whether it's partnership, whether it's money, whether it's success, fame, whatever. And once you attain it, it takes a very different mindset to keep it than it does to actually get it, right? And so, like,
100%.
how do people, who have an unworthiness mindset, start the work of shifting in order to actually feel as though they're worthy of what they've got?
I think one of the fastest ways to do it is working with your judgments. I love what Steve Hardison had said to me, is that the life that you desire is underneath your judgments. It's the judgments that's the kink in the hose, that's the block. And if we can start through self-forgiveness and creating new truths out of the judgments, then we can open up the flow and we can be in the flow of receiving and having and keeping. And knowing that there's more to come, also knowing that we can put things out in circulation and it comes back. The receiving piece, I think, is one of the biggest missing pieces for many people, like you said. And so once you start to remove your judgment, and judgment about not being worthy, which is a lie, once you start to remove that and replace it, it's the way to start to allow yourself to receive it. And then your doing comes from your state of being. So if you are no longer unworthy, if that's not your state of being and your being is more in line with worthiness, now your doing is coming from that state of being, from that action, which means when you receive or somebody gives something to you, you are available to receive it as opposed to blocking it. And we can see this it's in the little things, Candice. It's not in the big things. It's in the little things of somebody gives you a compliment. One of the things I said to a client, Candice, the other day was, she was telling me what her financial goal was. And I said, okay, imagine that I just gave you that money right now. She physically moved back in her chair and put her hands up. She could not receive it because I didn't do anything. I'm not worthy of it. I don't understand. So what we want to do is remove the block so that you're available to receive, because everything you want is already here.
Oh, I love the term available, because
Yeah.
I was working with a therapist and she was speaking about, the term emotionally unavailable. And so what she said was, the reason you attract emotionally unavailable partners is because you are actually emotionally unavailable. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, no, I am so available. In fact, I could wear it on my t-shirt. And I think it's when you start digging into it that you realize the resistance, right? And so do you teach people how to start identifying that resistance? Because it can be so hard when you just hear it. Like if you had to say to me, no, that you are struggling with receiving, a lot of people might say to you, but Hina, I don't struggle with receiving. You can give it to me. Like, I won't struggle with it. And so how do you help people get to terms with their own resistance?
Yeah, 100%. So I love that example that you just gave, because it shows the difference between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. Our conscious mind is, I'm so available. Come on, bring it. I want all the money. I want all the relationships. I am here for it. Our subconscious mind is, you're not really worthy of it. You haven't worked hard enough. You haven't suffered enough. You can't have it that easy. That would be wrong. What would people think? People are going to judge you. So what runs the show is the subconscious mind. So we don't get what we want, we get how we feel about what we want. So the way that we start to uncover this is by asking really great questions. Questions like, if it's money, for example, if money was a person in your life, how would you describe that person? And I have heard things like asshole. I've heard things like cold, unavailable, hear sometimes not reliable. So this is how we can uncover how you feel about it. Because consciously you're like, yes, I'm available for wealth. I'm available for it. But subconsciously, we need to get to how you feel about it, because you don't get what you want. You get how you feel about what you want.
That is incredible. When you started this work, did you find that you had resistance to the learnings or some of the philosophies you were starting to encounter?
Oh, so much resistance. So not only resistance, Candice, judgment. Oh, how I would judge people. I would be like judging, like, oh, it can't be that like, yeah, so much resistance, so much judgment. But thank God I had it in me to go, well, what I'm doing is not working. So I might as well give this a try and actually take it seriously. And what I realized was that as I said, it's like everything was underneath our judgment. So the reason it was difficult to look at was because the outside world is really a mirror of my inner world. So when I'm projecting it onto somebody else or another situation by judging it, but really I'm judging myself. So even when I looked at people that were wealthy and decisions that they would make and how they would show up, I would judge that. I would totally judge that. But then I realized I can't know what I can have if I can't even know what I want. So I dismiss that. Like, I'm not that kind of person. Oh, I'm not that kind of a person. But it's like, how do I know that? How do I know that? How do I know I'm not that? Maybe I really am that kind of person. And what I found is that I am. I really am. Also, this idea of like, maybe it doesn't have to be hard. Like maybe I don't have to hustle and grind. What if it could be easy? What if I could create the life that I want, have the relationships that I want, and it could be easy? So this was something that I had to let go of a judgment and I had resistance to, because I thought that if it came easy, I did not earn it. If I didn't suffer, I couldn't really keep it.
That is so just powerful. And I mean, it's something we encounter all the time, right? Whether it's within our personal lives, within ourselves, that money is hard work, right? We associate money with hard work. We'll hear things like love, comes with hard work. Everything that you really want has always been associated with the term hard work, and I don't want to dismiss the idea of hard work, but I want to really interrogate the idea of suffering. And so you use that word, I'm pretty sure intentionally. So can people get addicted to suffering? I'm just so curious about that.
Well, what they can get addicted to is an idea that is the way it is, that in order that also can justify them receiving. So just think about it, Candice, like going on a vacation. We could, oh, I'm so burnt out, I've got to go away. People are like, go away, you deserve it. Because I suffered enough, I deserve it. Like, because I'm now so burnt out that the first half of my vacation is just trying to acclimatize to not doing anything. Like, what if I don't have to even have nothing to prove and I don't have to do anything to deserve it? So I think this idea of suffering is a paradigm that we have that's also very much from the masculine and the male model. But I think as we're seeing more come up in the feminine and leaning into that, we're now going to have a different kind of balance. And men want that as well. I have many male clients who are like, I want it to be easy. Maybe I don't have to suffer. Maybe there is an easier way. Maybe I get to go away because I want to go away and not because I've had to hit rock bottom or suffer. Maybe I can just do it. And that's why when I first started sharing a bit about my life, the reason I do it and I share these things is because I want to interrupt the programming out there. I want to interrupt that. I want to show people what is possible for them, but also in this package. Because, we see self-made millionaire, or we see that, and it's usually, it shows up in a different way. Like, I didn't see people talking about that they were a millionaire that looked like me. And so just to be because you're someone's possibility. You don't even know that, but you're someone's possibility. Like, what if I share that I am going to be going on a trip and I did it with ease? What if I share that I am going to stay at a hotel in the city because I want to, just because I want to? Like, it's radical. It can feel radical to people. Like, you're doing this because you just want to.
Mm. Wow. And I love what you're speaking about, the sharing, because there are people out there who see you and they think to themselves, wow, if she can, it's possible for me too. And representation does matter, right? We do need
Oh my
that,
gosh.
you know.
Candice, it matters so much. Let me tell you something that happened. I'm on a Zoom call with some colleagues and I press the raise hand icon and it is my complexion. And I'm shocked. I'm like, I'm delighted. I'm so happy. And then I mentioned it even on the call because they're colleagues. I'm like, oh my gosh, my hand came up and it was my complexion. And they said, oh, maybe your son was using the computer. And that's exactly what it was. My son had been using my Zoom and he had changed it, which I was so happy he did. But I thought, wow, that had such an impact on me as a 52-year-old woman to see that that there was a choice for me to have my complexion on it, on a fucking, sorry, excuse my language, raised hand icon. Because growing up, I don't know for you, Candice, but for me, foundations, you couldn't get your color. I was always a little orange. And if I was seeing a makeup artist, they never had it wasn't part of their kit. It wasn't part of their kit. So representation does matter. It absolutely does matter. Wealth for women and in the BIPOC community matters because money talks. And this is where we can change policies and systems and support brands that support all different colors and shapes and sizes. We can put our money behind it and fund those types of projects that are important to us. So I talk about money a lot, and some people don't like that because they have an idea that that means you're not spiritual. But money's just energy and it's here to support us if we let it.
That is powerful. Every part of that, which is from that, the color of the raise hand icon, I think that's powerful, actually. To the foundation story. So I used to be a model in my younger days in high school. And I remember I'd always be the one who never had the correct foundation. So eventually I'd have to go out and find my own foundation and bring it to the shoot because I was like, I'm going to look crazy. And so, it's those kind of things that I think become so a part of our culture, and it becomes so a part of when you're not used to being represented, you just assume you always have to do more. You just always have to do more in order to either fit in or have your voice heard. And I love that you have a passion for that. I love that you talk about it. And you were talking about something that's also profound, which is people recoil at the idea of people talking about money, especially if those people have achieved a certain level of success. And so how do you deal with that? Is there a way of, I don't want to say converting, but, teaching people that this is not a bad thing. This is just something you happen to be uncomfortable with?
I think the way that I teach it is by living it. So for example, which is again, why I share it so much. I think especially women, we've been shamed around money. We've been shamed about our money choices. Like if we choose to buy something like a bag or something that brings us joy, it's like, oh, that's frivolous. Or do the latte thing. Like, do you need that many lattes? I mean, and it's like, that is the big issue. And so I think, I was saying that I saw this video on TikTok and it was tongue in cheek and I get it, but I just wanted to have a broader conversation about it. And it was a woman hiding her Amazon packages. And so it was tongue in cheek, just a funny little thing. It's hiding her Amazon packages, sneaking them in from her husband. But I think it does speak to how we feel about what our wants and our desires, that we have to play it down, hide it, and sneak it around. and not just claim that this is what I want. And so also to not, so what I also try to teach is that, you know, it's like when you purchase something, when you give something to yourself, it's not about also like the money exchange. It's an exchange in energy. So every time you wear that outfit, like you just feel like $1,000,000. And it doesn't matter the cost of the outfit. It's just that you purchase something that you liked. And so this is something that I teach people, is just to start to play with it and to ask yourself questions like, what do I want? So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was at a training at a hotel, and you know how sometimes breakfast is included with your room package. So I take my coffee black, and I'm like, well, I could get a black coffee from the breakfast room that's included, or I could get a cappuccino from a soy cappuccino from the cafe down there. And I'm having this debate. I could have the free coffee, or I could have this. And then I was just like, thank God I woke up, Candice. I was like, what am I doing? I'm a grown woman wondering if I'm going to pay the fee. Like, the question that I'm missing is, what do I want? Do I want the black coffee? Get the black coffee. Do I want the cappuccino? Get the cappuccino. And I was like, I want the cappuccino. So get the cappuccino. But these are the things that are running the show that we don't always catch, of how we keep ourselves in this cycle of almost like a poverty consciousness. Like, I have the money and I'm going to nickel and dime myself over this. And so I had to, but those are the stretch moments when you catch it and you say to yourself, what do I want? So one of the things I invite people to do is start to ask yourself, what do you want? What do you want? Like, what do you want? And again, you don't have to justify it. Just because you want it. That's why we're here. We're in the physical to enjoy, not to just maybe make rent and have a vacation once a year.
Oh, you touched on so many points, and it's actually so ironic because I was having this conversation with a friend of mine just last night, and it's speaking about the justification. And I remember I was hanging out with a male friend of mine, and you know, I moved into a new apartment a few months ago, and I remember it didn't seem like shaming, but he kind of did shame me for the apartment, because he was like, oh, you're a single woman, why would you want such an expansive apartment? And I said, because I work hard and I like my apartment, you know? And he's like, you should have negotiated them all the way down, and you should have let it. And I was like, I didn't want to. I was like, I thought it was worth the price, and I paid it, and I really like it, you know? And as you were speaking, I was just thinking about that. A part of me wanted to justify that, but I am responsible. I do know how much I make. I do know I can afford it. I know all these things. And it was just so funny to me as you were talking. And I was like, okay.
Well, and it's interesting, because then what happens, and I think we have this can happen to women, is we question our ability to make decisions. You know, you didn't go through that because but for somebody else, that conversation could really, they could go down a rabbit hole like, well, did I make the right decision? Maybe it was too much. Maybe I didn't negotiate enough. Maybe I'm not responsible, all of that stuff. But that's very, you know, and it's so true. It's in these, so that's receiving. You gave yourself a beautiful environment where you're going to spend a heck of a lot of time, not even that it matters, but that you feel expansive in. So then imagine, Candice, like, this is the thing. What will you create in this environment? What will you start to bring into the world when you're surrounded in this beautiful environment that makes you feel expansive? Because we are for fuller expression and expansion. It is our nature. That's why we went from the phones attached to the wall to what would it be like to, like, it worked. So do we need to walk around the house with the phone? Well, it's a bit more convenient, to a cell phone, to now being able to do so much from these small devices that fit into our pocket. It's because we have a natural inclination for expansion. And, you know, how can we improve and just do better and better and better? And there may be a time, Candice, where this environment you outgrow, and you're going to move into your next level of space. And it could even be sooner than you think.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. And I love this conversation because I think a lot of people speak about, when it's the travesty of life, when things are going completely wrong. And then it's like, okay, these are the things we need to fix. But I think it's very rare that people speak about the having, because I read a story about Will Smith actually, and I found
Yeah.
it so profound. He told a story on Oprah, and he says when he first started the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he made a lot of money. And he was just spending out of control. And he says, what he didn't realize at the time is that he was actually more afraid of having the money than he had come to realize. And then he went on to lose all the money and he had to move back home to his parents. And he says now at his age, and Will, I think, is about 50 now or 51. And he says his biggest fear is still losing his money. And he says that's how he lives. He's like, I'm one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and I'm still petrified of losing. And so how do we start to release that fear we hold around losing what we already have?
We have to understand what it is. So if we feel that we're going to lose it, we're coming from lack. And it's always the energy behind it, because if we're going to lose it, that means there's only a finite amount, like we lose it. But he has actually proven to himself that he can create, recreate. So that means that the energy of it is infinite. It is infinite. I mean, we are of the same consciousness that created the world. You and I are in different parts of the world right now, and here we are connected. And so everything is already created. So it's first of all knowing that even money or whatever it is that you desire, it's already here. It's already here. There's so much already here, and it is infinite. It is present, and it is available. The reason you may not have it in your bank account is not because it is not here. It is not because you are not worthy. It is because you are not aware of how to have it in your bank account. It is because you've been blocked it from view through your judgments. So what we want to do is actually have, it's not blind faith, it's faith based on understanding that it's already here, and that you simply are to line up to it, to be a match to it, which will require you to also start doing things that perhaps you're not doing right now. And so it's always the energy behind it. So sometimes someone will say, I want to purchase this thing, and it can feel like, yeah, you should do that. It would be a next expansive move. But if their feeling is stress by spending that much money, and they're going to be in a stressful place, and they're going to be worried about it, they should not do it. If the stretch is causing them stress, then don't do it, because our dominant feeling is always going to be supported by the universe. So you're just going to prove it to yourself. You will prove to yourself that it is stressful or you can't manage it. So you want to think about, what is the energy behind it? What's the energy that you can get behind it? Just like with your place, you were able to get it was neutral. It was like, this is what I like. Yeah. And why do I have to negotiate? Like, I'm fine with it. What if it could be that easy? That I like it, the price makes sense, it's gorgeous, and I get it. So it's always the energy behind it that makes the difference, but understanding that we live in an infinite and abundant universe, and there's not a limited supply.
So powerful. So powerful. And we have been living in an unprecedented time, 2020, 2021, and it looks like 2022 is going to be easier, but much of the same. And for people who are experiencing that anxiety and stress from having lost everything, and they feel like they've done everything right, and now they've lost their marriage, they've lost, the stability they've had in their lives. For people in that state of mind at this current moment, how can they start to rethink their reality?
Well, for people in that state of mind, I would start very gently. And I would just start with gratitude. I think that's the gateway to it. From wherever you are, there's something to be grateful for. I'm grateful for my neighbors, grateful for my home, grateful for the sunshine, grateful for the support that I see, grateful for nature, just start really, really general. And I would start to create a gratitude practice, because what that does is immediately it starts to, it's a mental attunement that you can make really quickly to just start to focus, like just to become aware. And then from that you can build. Then you know what I would do, Candice? I would look for evidence of people that thrived during unprecedented times. Go to the Great Depression and you can see that there were people, and even now, that have done really, really well. A lot of my clients have done really well, and they were in businesses where they had to shut down, like salon owners. But what they did was they used their space for something else. So they started to see possibilities, and then just starting to ask yourself questions like, if everything is possible, what would I love to see happen? Sometimes also something like what we've been through, it just brings to the surface things that were already not working. But in the busyness of our days, we could sweep it under the rug. And now we can't. So it's just bringing it to surface. And so it's kind of like to see like, okay, from this place now, what do I want? What do I really want? And you can start to and to make different decisions. And it is a new economy now too, and there's so many things we can do from home. So it's even just to say, even this one phrase, whether you say the pandemic, COVID, this happened for me. If this happened for me, what are the teachings in this? We got to go gently. Sometimes it depends where you at. That can be too much of a stretch for someone. They may just be like, F you. But so start with gratitude, and then just start to say, like, what are the opportunities here? What could I do? Another thing you can do as well is, how can I increase my service? How can I increase my service? Another thing you can do is listening to your show. It's like, okay, maybe your situation, your physical environment is what it is. It's not optimal, but what do you listen to? What do you put into your mind? What conversations are you engaged in? Are you engaged in conversations where they're talking about doom and gloom all the time? Are you in social media groups about that? Remove yourself, protect yourself, protect your energy. I think it's very important during this time.
And I love that phrase, that this is happening for me. And I've heard it so beautifully, which is as well, like life is consistently happening for me. So everything you experience, when you start looking at it through the paradigm of the fact that the universe is actually assisting you in becoming this greatest version of yourself. I know it's changed my life. And I know that once you start getting into that vibrational frequency, like you start seeing life as just a miraculous experience, because you're like, okay, this is happening for me. And sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not that easy, but you're like, I know it's going to make sense, just not right now.
So true, Candice. One of the other phrases that I've used that has helped me a lot is, everything is for my growth. Everything is for my growth. So even the things, the no's that I get along the way, or the rejections, it's for my growth. It's for my growth. Everything is for my growth. Sometimes I'm like, I could take a bit of a break on growing. Can I just have a moment? Can we pause on the growing? But everything is for my growth. The other thing I think as well that made a big difference, that may help your listeners, is taking 100% responsibility for your results. 100% responsibility for your health, your wealth, your relationships, everything. 100% responsibility, because that puts you in the driver's seat and it moves you out of feeling like a victim.
And for people who say, they fight back and they say, okay, I want to take 100% responsibility, but my colleagues, my family, my husband, my cousin, whatever it is, they'll say, but this thing is in my environment, and that is they responsible for their behavior and how I'm behaving as a result. What do you say to people with that kind of resistance?
you are responsible for what meaning you give to things and how you respond in those situations. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients was telling me this morning that they are purchasing a new house. She went to go speak to the contractors, and it looks like things may get delayed. She went home, told her wife about it. Her wife went into like, oh, this is awful, and was kind of going down that rabbit hole. She said to her wife, she said, we're going to be in there. I feel really neutral about it because we're going to be in there. So what she did was and then her wife said, okay, I get it. I just want you to commiserate with me. And she said, I'm not available for that, but so she stopped that from going down that road. So, and then her wife adjusted to her energy. I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, either way, we're going to be in the house. It just might be a little bit longer. So that's the part of the responsibility. Can be challenging for us though, Candice, because we feel like if we're not commiserating, that we're not being nice. Like, do you ever feel that way? Like, I should just at least be agreeable and nice. So what you want to do is start to set up your boundaries around your energy. So just don't have that conversation. Close off the conversation a little quicker. Don't spend as much time with those people if you are able to, but it's your responsibility too. And then if there is a lot of that in your environment, why did you set up your environment like that?
Ooh, 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 ooh. That is a powerful question. Jeez.
Yeah.
You touched on boundaries. How important are boundaries to our success in life overall?
I think boundaries are so important, Candice, especially for women, because we've been brought up as little girls to be liked. Like, being liked is so important, so that we will betray our boundaries for the value of being liked and being seen as a good person and as a nice person. So this place around boundaries can be very challenging for us, because what it comes up against is, but I'm not being kind. I'm not being nice, or they will think this and that of me. What also comes up is that we start to put everyone else's agendas and what they need before our own. So starting to shift this is so important, not only for us, but for future generations as well, for people to see that we have strong boundaries, and you can have boundaries that are created from love and kindness and generosity, that you taking care of yourself is helpful to the other person. So even in boundaries around conversations. So what I had found was that for my clients that have a high value, and I was used to be like this, of being liked, that would compromise other things in their life. But if they could replace at the top of being liked with their own goals and what they want to create as being the number one thing in their well-being, and drop being liked a little bit further down the list, things started to shift in their life. Now, some people aren't going to really love that, because it worked for them for you not to have boundaries. It really did. But they'll either fall away or they will come around. And either one is okay. But it's a shift in priorities, and you've got to make your well-being your top priority.
That concept of being liked, I think it's a human concept overall, right? I think women definitely, we're raised with it a lot more, but I think people overall, there's that community acceptance, whether it's primal or not. How do we overcome that need to be, accepted, liked, at the expense of our values at times?
We have to get clear on what we really want. So many times we haven't, so for example, if I go back and look at the times when I said, well, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not really into that, whether it's brands or something like that doesn't really matter to me. How do I know that? Well, in my circle, maybe that's something that we feel. So maybe if I am to like those things, it would mean moving out of a circle. So some people will stay in their neighborhoods that they've grown up in and won't leave because of that. Some people won't go for the promotion because their colleagues, what will their colleagues think of them? Some people won't move into the new neighborhood or take that bigger apartment or condo or home because of that too, because of that. So the first thing is to get really clear on, what do you want? What do you want? What you really want, and understand that that question is always evolving as we're evolving. Once you get clear on that, then you look around. And one of the things I always say to my clients is, what would the person with your goal do? So when you were looking at this at your new place, one of the things I would, and if, let's say you were questioning it, I would say to you, does the person with your goal live in a place like that? It would have been like that. Yeah, done, sign the paper. Does the person with your goal negotiate when they don't really feel the need to negotiate? No. Does the person with your goal, like, what is their morning routine? How do they wake up? Who do they spend time with? How do they show up for things? So that's what you want to start to do, is think, what do I want? And then how does the person that has that show up? Now, we may not know because they're not in our circle. Maybe in our generationally, we've never had that. We would be the first person in our family to do something like this. So then we can, what's so beautiful is that we have access through social media, through the internet, to listen to conversations that Will Smith has had. Like, start to find it other places and build yourself from that.
That's such a powerful exercise to do. And being a self-made millionaire, it would talk about, of course, you would be the first in your family, I'm assuming, that became a millionaire, right? And how did that feel? Like, how did it feel knowing that you were the first to do this? You know, was there a particular feeling, or did you feel pretty neutral about it?
I felt pretty neutral and natural about it, because in my mind, as I was it before it actualized. So by the time it happened, it was like, oh, that's nice. Like, I can see, you know, I see the numbers, but I was the self-made millionaire before it was in my bank account. It is just like, you know, the athlete that visualizes, you know, hitting that home run, or, you know, making, you know, catching that ball. They are in it, in their mind, they are that person. And then it's like, the physical is the last place that happens. So it's like, oh, the physical finally caught up to my self-image, to how I'm seeing myself. But that could not have happened if I didn't do the inner work to be that first.
So were you living from that place of, what would millionaire Hina do in these
100%
situations?
100%, Candice. Whenever I would even have an issue, let's say, so let's say I was getting a string of no's, people didn't want to work with me. I'd be like, well, what would millionaire Hina do? Millionaire Hina wouldn't give it a lot of energy. It would be like, okay, let's, like, next. Like, I would look at the feedback, but I wouldn't be distraught about it, you know, living from the place of my goal. So I absolutely did that. Who would I be hanging around? What are the decisions I would make? What would my social circle look like? Who would I be masterminding with? Who would I be with this group? Would I be having these conversations? No, I'd be like, and then I would think, sometimes if I was involved in a conversation, I would maybe have a pause in my mind and go, would Oprah be having this conversation right now? I don't think she would be. I don't even think it would come into her atmosphere. I don't even think anybody would phone her up to have this conversation. Like, it just wouldn't be in her world. Like, she just wouldn't. So that's what I would do. I would start playing it that way. And then I'd be like, well, how would I show up? I would show up polished to these events, to things like that. Like, I really, you know, would a millionaire be sitting there going down the elevator thinking, am I going to have the cappuccino or the black coffee? They would just be thinking, what do I want? And if I want the black coffee, that's what I'll have. So that's exactly what I did, Candice.
Oh, I love that. I love. Well, you're just like these constant inner dialogues, right? And catching yourself. And I would assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that when you first begin, it is a long process of self-monitoring, being in those conversations, being in those spaces, right?
100%. It's kind of like, it's the inner work. At first, it can feel like it takes a long time, but then once once you start to do it, it doesn't take as long because you're creating new habit patterns so that you can get back to it really quickly, that you can just remind yourself really quickly about it. It's kind of like what they say about the bamboo, like it takes so long underground, but things grow in the dark, Candice. You put a seed and it's growing in the dark. And what is our job when we plant a seed is to take care of the soil. It is to water it, to make sure it's getting the right nutrients in the soil and the sun is on it. It is not to dig it up to see if it's growing. And that's what we do is we start to like, we have an idea of, oh, I'd love to do this. And we don't see it happen like that. It can't, we're not lined up to receive it. It's kind of like when you're doing a renovation and you start to do the demo. At first, it's really exciting. Then you demo and you find stuff behind the walls. And you realize you have to do a whole rewiring to be able to create a solid foundation to hold up the new space. Well, that is what is happening. And that is the part at first that can take time. And we're not seeing evidence. And that's when we bail on ourselves. So it's the mental fortitude and the discipline of thinking when you're not seeing the evidence of it. And that's what faith is. Faith is crazy looking. Like it looks crazy because you're talking about it. Nobody can see it. You can't see it. And they're like, you know, and that's what faith is. The faith is the point that we can't see it.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
I really love that. And so, you know, a lot of people that have been reaching out to me lately, it's been quite surprising because before I used to get a lot of inquiries about, you know, career, money, success, the material stuff. And I think for the past maybe 6 months or so, people have been very human focused. They're like, I'm not in the right relationship. I'm not finding the right friends. I'm not finding the right community. And so for those people who are saying, Hina, I'm struggling to get into energetic alignment with the kind of person I want to be in a relationship with. How do they start that internal process of getting themselves ready in order to come into alignment with someone they could potentially be with?
First thing I would do is get a piece of paper and write down all the traits of the person you want to be with. You know, perhaps it's that they are funny, loving, whatever it is that would be the person you would want to be with. And then look at that list and think, who do I have to be a match to that person? And then that can give you insight on how you want to show up. What are some things that you want to strengthen in yourself? And that's exactly where I would start. It's easier sometimes to start on the outside. You make that list, but the reason you're not with that person is because it's not a match. How would you feel if that person walked into your life right now? Could you receive that person? Or would you feel like, oh my gosh, they're no, like I'm not worthy of it. It's too good to be true. What if it's good and it's true? What if you came to a point where it was neutral for you? That of course the person should treat me this well. Of course I should be expecting to be treated this well. And who do I need to be that person?
I love that. I love that, because the idea of feeling as though, how do I meet this person where they are in terms of this is what I really want. And in order for me to feel as though I'm, you know, ready, because what you said is powerful, because it happens. It really does happen where people meet someone who's so good for them, but they're struggling to accept that person into their life. And you're like, what is going on? And it's because they don't feel worthy of that kind of love or that kind of acceptance or that kind of a person. So I think that is so profound. And so as we
Candice, sorry, what they will do is they'll sabotage it because of that. So so that scenario can get acted out. It will be sabotaged, or they'll look for problems. Like I think your house example, your apartment is the perfect example where if somebody was not ready, that is the person that would have complicated, overthought it, been like, well, I don't know, do I really deserve it? If you were at a place where you weren't sure if you were worthy of it, you were in a different place. but somebody else would sabotage it. It could come up that easy. Then they'd be like, well, no, now I've got to negotiate it. Like, let me make it difficult. How can I make this difficult?
How can
But
I make this difficult?
yeah, yeah. To match the belief that things cannot be easy, to match the belief that it's too good to be true, to match the belief that I am not worthy, to match the belief that we don't do this in my family. How can I do that? How can I create that external environment? But we do this all on a subconscious level. We don't know.
Mm. And for generational patterns, when, I've seen it in families whereby, maybe in the woman in the family, all the women in the family have been divorced, or all the men in the family have an alcohol problem, or but there's a consistent patterning and programming that is almost like it gets passed on like a baton from one to the other. When you are the first person to start breaking that, I don't want to call it a generational curse, but that generational programming or patterning, how do you stick to the new alignment when your internal programming is so strong towards the other side?
Yeah, very good. That's a great question. And I think that one of the ways is through repetition, because remember, the creation of that paradigm has been repeated. And if it's generational, for hundreds of years and years and years and years. So what we want, some people may be listening to this call or listening to one of your other calls, and they have a breakthrough. And they think like, oh my gosh, I've had a breakthrough. That was a generational paradigm. That's not me. That was my grandma, or that was my grandfather. But it wasn't, did I really think this? No. That is the beginning of the work now. So what we want to do is make that breakthrough your new default, your new habitual way of being, your new habit. And the way is through repetition. And the way is, it's not fighting it. It did happen. That was the way that your family functioned. But so it's not like arguing with that or trying to make it different than it is. It's accepting that that is what it is. But it is spending more time in the place of how you desire it to be and being that person. It makes me think of eagles. Eagles may have a crow on their back, and maybe there's a generational paradigm that you've got on your back. Eagles don't even fight with the crow. They don't try to shake the crow off. Eagles know that as they get higher and higher, the crow is going to fall off because it cannot stay at that altitude. So you keep growing, focus on your dreams, focus on your future. The other thing that I really work on is future present. So whatever is happening right now, whatever's in your bank account, the state of your relationships, your health, this moment is a reflection of the past. It was the past thoughts, feelings, and actions that created all of that right now. So if you want something different, we live in the future present. If we're going to be controlled by the past, even things that happened generations ago, we're just going to be recreating the past. What we want to do is pause and say, how do I want it to be? Okay, yes, my relationships have not been good. I'm in a bad breakup. Yes, my bank account is in overdraft right now. Yes. How do I want it to be? Okay, I want to be, in overflow. I want to feel love. I want to be in a relationship that feels really good, and then start to create and from that place as opposed to from the results.
That is so, everything you've given us in this conversation, I think, is so practical, and it's so easy to understand. And I think if we really implement it, it could be really life-changing. So I'm so grateful for that. So thank you. And as we start wrapping up, I just want to ask you, what is real success to you?
Real success is, for me, is being at peace and at ease. Knowing that I get to have it all, and I get to have it all, and I get to create through ease, joy, and fun. And knowing that as I do that, that my expansion serves the world. And knowing that, playing small, I feel, is selfish, because then we get robbed of your gifts. So real success for me is being at peace and at ease, grateful for what I have and grateful for what is coming.
Wow. I love, love, love that definition. And the final question, Hina, is what is something about you that we would never find on Google?
Oh my gosh. I'm so transparent. What is something about me that you would never find on Google? I probably that when I was really young, I was very, very shy and introverted and would cry, Candice, at the drop of a hat. Like I was just like such a sensitive, shy child that if somebody, kind of if a teacher looked at me or said something in a certain tone, I could be brought to tears so quickly. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know that would, I know, right?
Just want to give young you such a big hug.
I know, I know.
Oh, Hina, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Candice, thank you. You are just beautiful inside and out. I've so enjoyed this conversation and I love what you're doing. And I'm so happy that you are certainly not dimming your light and that you are showing up and taking space and showing other people what is possible for them. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Hina. Oh. I love that there were so many practical takeaways from this conversation with Hina. If you love this conversation, be sure that you catch the conversation I had with Sonia Zabatani, who also spoke about how to change your mind in order to reach your peak status in the world. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you haven't, be sure that you are checking out if we are having any events currently running. And if we're not, be sure to check out our Real Success community. Now, thank you for being with us, and I look forward to serving you again next week.